Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Anthony Gonzalez, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator with the Higher Education Center for Alcohol and Drug Misuse Prevention and Recovery. And I want to welcome you all today to our webinar titled, What You Need to Know About the New Stop Campus Hazing Act and Resources to Support You, featuring Jill Maurer and Meredith Stewart. Before we get started with today's content, I do just have a few housekeeping slides I'd like to share with everybody. Here on the screen should look somewhat familiar as we are in the Zoom webinar format. We do welcome your questions at any time throughout the live session. We do just kindly ask that you utilize the Q&A feature. We do have the chat enabled, so please feel free to share, introduce yourself, share where you're joining us from, and any resources and reactions to today's content. But of course, if you have any specific questions, we do kindly ask that you utilize the Q&A feature. We do have live captioning enabled for today's session, and you can turn that on through your bottom dashboard. If you have any issues getting that set up, please just send us a chat, and I will try our best to walk you through that process. Additionally, we encourage everybody to learn more about becoming a member of the Higher Education Center. You can learn more about the different membership tiers and the benefits that go along with them by visiting our website at hecaod.osu.edu. We also have a few upcoming events that I would like to share with everybody. Our next webinar will be taking place next week on August 6th and is titled Trends in College Student Substance Use, Who, What, and How Did the Pandemic Affect Us? We also have a water cooler chat, our next water cooler chat happening next month on August 12th, and we'll be focusing around the topic of becoming professionally developed. We also have our Fall Learning Collaborative. That registration will be opening at the beginning of August and is titled More Than Sobriety, Building Collegiate Recovery Support for the Whole Student. And that will be taking place September 17th. And of course, we have the 2025 National Meeting taking place here in Columbus, October 21st through the 23rd, but we will have a virtual component running simultaneously. So we hope to see you join us at one of those formats. And with that, it is my pleasure turning it over today to our presenters and friends, Jill Maurer, Assistant Director with the Gordy Center, and Meredith Stewart, Operations Manager with Stop Hazing. Thank you both for joining us today, and it's my pleasure turning it over to you at this time.
Great, thank you, Anthony. Let me just get my share up. Hopefully everyone can see our slides. As Anthony mentioned, my name is Jill Maurer, and I'm with the Gordy Center at the University of Virginia. The Gordy Center's mission is to end hazing and substance misuse among high school and college students around the country. So we are a resource available for you, although we are located at the University of Virginia, and I'm here with Meredith Stewart.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, everybody. My name is Meredith Stewart. I use the she, series pronouns. I'm the operations manager at Stop Hazing. We're a national organization dedicated to conducting research about hazing and hazing prevention, and then translating that research into practical tools and resources for campus professionals, K-12, parents, policymakers, and so on to prevent hazing. And we were very involved in the advocacy, helping craft and write the bill, to advocating for it, getting stakeholders involved, and then eventually seeing it through to get it across the finish line and signed into law in December, the Stop Campus Hazing Act, which had iterated over the years and was about 10 years in the making. So excited for you all to join us here today as we talk more about what the implementation of that looks like.
Yep, so here are our goals for today. This is really, we have an hour, and the law has a lot of components and is a little bit dense. So we're going to try to go a little in depth for y'all. But there are lots of other resources that we will also highlight in case you need more information after sort of getting our hour-long intro to the law itself. Today, we're going to be using menti.com. So you can go to menti.com and enter that code. This is a totally anonymous audience feedback platform. We just thought it might be nice to get to know y'all a little bit. There are just a few interactive slides throughout the presentation. You can use the QR code to get there, or that code will be at the top of each interactive slide as well. And then Logan so kindly shared it for y'all in the chat. So I'm just going to start with our first Menti question. Go ahead and let us know who's here. We're really interested to see who we're talking to today. Looks like we have a lot of student affairs and health education, some fraternity and sorority, a little accountability. If you're not listed, go ahead and put it in the chat. Just curious to see who all is here. Yeah, oh, I see we have some athletics folks. FSL, yeah. I only allowed for one, just because we were asking for primary role, but thank you for jumping in and letting us know. It looks like we've got a lot of health educators and a lot of student affairs. So hopefully y'all find this helpful conversation. Great. All right, so as we mentioned, we're just giving you guys sort of a broad overview of the Stop Campus Hazing Act and those requirements. So I'm going to turn it over to Meredith to get us started on that.
Cool, thanks, Jill. So we are breaking today's session down into the three, well, and the law generally, you could think about it as three different buckets. So we've got reporting, and that is reporting of hazing incidents as Clery statistics in your annual security reports, as prevention education and thinking about how to implement research-informed prevention programming. And then transparency, developing and publishing hazing incident transparency reports on your campus websites. So with that, the first requirement is, we'll dive into this one a bit more, and it is, just to give you all a heads up, it is pretty text heavy in this section, but that also is the nature of this part of the law. And so talking specifically about hazing statistics being included in your annual security reports. Before we really dive in, we'd love to hear from you all. Who's familiar with, who knows what an ASR annual security report is? Okay, this is pretty good. Very encouraging. And for folks who are not yet aware of it, we'll talk more about it today, and highly encourage you to get connected with folks on campus who are writing and developing these annual security reports, your Clery compliance folks, and generally getting a little bit more familiar with Clery in general and campus safety. All right, so with that, the annual security report requires statements of policy and summaries of existing policies and procedures of what campus safety looks like on campus. So it's a snapshot really of, and an opportunity for you to document exactly what's going on campus. It includes 3 previous calendar years worth of Clery crime statistics, and it's published every October 1st, every year. And as that summary of campus safety and what everything looks like campus safety wise, what Clery statistics and crime statistics look like on campus, it's an opportunity for you to also say what you're doing for campus safety, but then also as you're developing these and refreshing these every year, checking in, am I doing what I'm saying? So do what you say what you do, is how we kind of think about these. The incidents in the ASR, or hazing incidents in your ASR, this is a new requirement. And so when an hazing incident is reported by a campus security authority, or individuals required to report under the Clery Act or to legal police agencies, that the hazing incident occurred in Clery Act defined geography, and that the incident meets the definition of hazing in the Clery Act. And we'll get into the definition piece in a moment. So this is a text heavy slide. The next few are like this, but it is really important that we go through exactly what the definition for the Stop Campus Hazing Act is and where it is applied to. So hazing is defined as any intentional knowing or reckless act committed by a person, whether individually or in concert with other persons, against another person or persons, regardless of the willingness of such other person or persons to participate. And that is that it's committed in the course of an initiation into, an affiliation with, or the maintenance of membership in a student organization, and causes or creates a risk above the reasonable risk encountered in the course of participation in the institution of higher education or the organization, such as the physical preparation necessary for participation in an athletic team, or of physical or psychological injury. And that also includes whipping, beating, striking, electronic shocking, placing of harmful substance on somebody's body or similar activity, causing or coercing or otherwise inducing sleep deprivation, exposure to the elements, confinement in a small place, extreme calisthenics or similar activity, causing or coercing or otherwise inducing another person to consume food, liquid, alcohol, drugs, or other substances, causing, coercing, or otherwise inducing another person to perform sexual acts. Any activity that places another person in reasonable fear of bodily harm through the use of threatening words or conduct. Any activity against another person that includes a criminal violation of local, state, tribal, or federal law. And any activity that induces, causes, or requires another person to perform a duty or task that involves a criminal violation of local, state, or federal law. So that is a lot. And this definition, oftentimes you'll see a lot of other definitions out there, perhaps a little bit more succinct. Some institution policies are fairly robust like this and have all of these different bullet points of what's included or could be included. This definition specifically is for the counting of hazing incidents as Clery statistics. So when you're conducting or counting and compiling your ASR, you're using this definition to account for those hazing statistics. This will be distinct from, or could be distinct from, your institution policy, and it could be distinct from the policy that is used to create your transparency reports, which is based on your institution policy. That may be confusing in this moment, but I think as we continue on through the rest of our session, that will help become a little bit more clear of what's what. Also, for the purposes of counting hazing statistics for annual security reports, a student organization is defined as an organization at an institution of higher education, such as a club, society, association, varsity or junior varsity athletic team, club sports team, fraternity, sorority, band, or student government, in which 2 or more of the members are students enrolled at the institution of higher education, whether or not the organization is established or recognized by the institution. So recognized and unrecognized organizations, hazing statistics of those should be included in your annual security reports. Some things to consider for your ASR reporting. Campus security authorities need to know about this change so that they report incidents of hazing and that those get compiled. The counting and including of hazing incidents in ASRs started back on January 1. And so some folks that you may really need to especially consider are those who work with student organizations. Maybe that's advisors to student groups, residence life, conduct, and so on. And then another important consideration is that definition of student organization includes recognized organizations, recognized and unrecognized organizations, but that does not change the reporting for Clery Act geography, which is a bit of a nuance there. Some resources to really support you in the nitty-gritty of Clery Act, Clery statistic counting. We highly recommend working with the Clery Center. They have a number of resources, paid resources and free resources available, and they have a great team of folks that can support you.
Great. So the new law also requires that the annual security report includes 2 policy statements related to hazing. And so we'll go over those here. I see a question. in the Q&A asking about the PowerPoint, because this is really text heavy. We are definitely making the PowerPoint slides available to y'all. They'll be sent out tomorrow. Anthony's also throwing them into the chat for everybody. So thank you for that. So the first part of your policy statement, as Meredith mentioned, you have to define hazing within your policy, and that hazing definition can be different than the Clery ASR reporting definition. That's okay. You can have your own definition. Your policy statement must also include how to report your incidents, the process using to investigate, and any information on applicable laws that apply, state, local, tribal. And then the second part of your hazing policy statement must include a description of research-informed campus-wide prevention programs. So the word description is really important here. You actually have to describe. You can't just say we have programs, we do prevention, we do education. You have to provide a description of what those programs and that education looks like for your populations of students, faculty, staff. So that's important distinction as well.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions from folks. What does research informed mean? And so we did develop this blog post for the public. It's called Evidence-Based, Research-Based, Research-Informed, or Data-Driven, a Campus Pro's Guide to Prevention Lingo. And we developed this little tiered visual for you to further help inform thinking around what is research informed. And we can think about evidence-based as that gold standard, meaning it's published in peer-reviewed articles, has been replicated, and has results in replication support that the original intended learning outcomes. That hazing prevention is an emerging, newer field, and so there is nothing evidence-based currently for hazing prevention. So if we would have said that in the law, we would have been setting everybody up for failure. And so instead, we landed on a couple tiers down, research informed. There are a handful of research-based programs and education opportunity strategies out there for you, and we'll talk through what some of those look like in a little bit. But research informed is what is the language used in the law, or evidence informed. Those two could be interchangeable. And we have more than anecdotal data now to guide practice in hazing prevention, but it can be fairly nuanced, and it's oftentimes a lot of these terms are used and thrown around, and it's important to take a closer look at what that really means and what programs say they're research-based, research-informed, and whatnot. So just having a little eye towards what the program is, what the learning outcomes are, and the evidence being used to support them is important.
So when you're looking at programs to implement for evidence-informed, research-based, you want to be looking at programs that use different theories, and then looking at what works. And what works on your campus might look different than what works on a different campus. So you really want to be, comprehensive, theory-driven, trying a variety of different approaches with your students and staff. Your facilitators need to be well trained. You want to have sufficient dosage. So one-time programs can be great, but how are you reinforcing those messages after that one-time program? You want to have some cultural humility, and then we love when you do some evaluation of your outcomes. So really looking for effective programming, what's going to work on your campus. And sometimes that's a little trial and error. And Meredith and I threw together some resources for you in this program to help maybe guide some of the choices that you're going to make about the programs that you use. So programming can look really different on your campus. We recommend customizing and tailoring your programming to your students, to your staff, really speaking to your own culture, because that's what's going to resonate with your community. And you want it to be evaluated and again, grounded in research. So we've got some prevention program strategies here on the left, and then some supplemental program strategies on the right that you can really lean into as you're either building or looking for programs to implement. So we're going to cover a little bit of the different tiers of options for resources.
Well, so starting with some research-based resources and noting that research-based means it was developed from existing theory and analysis and has peer-reviewed journal articles associated with it. It adapts knowledge into an intervention and has efficacy of effectiveness, meets the learning outcomes, and so on. So We Don't Haze is a research-based intervention and implementation strategy. It's a 16-minute film. Stop Hazing and Cleary Center partnered to develop this film a number of years ago, and there's a companion guide, discussion, activity, and workshop guide that goes along with it. And we recently, in the last couple of years, refreshed that as well. It identifies hazing and hazing behaviors, alternative traditions and activities, bystander intervention concepts, and skill building. And then we've got those companion resources and data and peer review journals to back up the testing and evaluation that went on for it. And We Don't Haze is a no-cost resource available. It will be in that resource document, and it's on the Stop Hazing website. Intervene is another free video film-based resource that is research-based. It's another 20-minute film. Colleagues at Cornell worked on this strategy, and it focuses on bystander intervention, hazing with a hazing-specific scenario. And there are workshop materials included, and again was rigorously evaluated at Cornell. This strategy, though, doesn't need to be siloed to Cornell. The video was developed in a way that could be applied at any institution. There aren't any specific like logos used, for example, that maybe somebody at UVA wouldn't want to have a Cornell logo as an example. But so that's another research-based strategy available at no cost. Social norms campaigns, these also are research-based strategies. This one in particular was another strategy tested and evaluated and then later published on from work of colleagues at Cornell. But a social norms approach and strategy uses data from a campus hazing survey on your campus, for example, to develop a campaign designed to help correct those misperceived norms about hazing. So that's another research-based strategy you could implement. You do need to have data in campus-specific data in order to implement this, but something to have on the radar.
And then the Gordy Center offers a curriculum that just won NASPA Gold this year about hazing and alcohol overdose. We developed that program, implemented it here at UVA, and then have licensed it to 16 other institutions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we're happy to license outside of Virginia as well. And we did a lot of evaluation. We have gotten a lot of feedback from our colleagues around the state and have updated those programs every year. And this is if they work to comply with Virginia's Adams Law, and would be very helpful in complying with the Stop Campus Hazing Act as well. So we did a lot of, and we have an open IRB right now. We're looking at a lot of evaluation data, and it has been shown measurably to change student attitudes around hazing. So we're happy to discuss with you the opportunity to use our programs as well.
Sharing some more research-informed hazing prevention strategies, and again, research-informed meaning it's been evaluated for effectiveness, meeting learning outcomes, and it's based on research and peer-reviewed work, but it isn't quite published yet. So Stop Hazing has a number of workshops and trainings available that have been all evaluated or have pilot studies and larger IRB studies going on as well. Making Space for Leaders to Lead Change and Practicing Values-Based Leadership and Decision-Making are two workshops tested and evaluated at institutions participating in the Hazing Prevention Consortium. And the 10 Signs of Healthy and Unhealthy Groups is a training that stemmed from our work with One Love, a dating violence prevention organization, where we translated the 10 signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships into 10 signs of healthy and unhealthy groups. And we have pilot data that suggests this training is an effective hazing prevention strategy and an opportunity to help student groups, clubs, teams, and orgs build healthier environments. There's a larger IRB study going on for that one as well.
And then the Gordy Center has The Lonely Dog, which is a free film available through our website that also comes with a facilitation guide. We did a pilot. It just was released this past fall. So we did a pilot study here at UVA in the fall, and we're continuing an IRB study this spring. But again, that's a free film, short film available through our website.
Cool. And then Stop Hazing has an online course. It's called Stand Up to Hazing. This also is there's a pilot study indicated effectiveness. And so there's another larger IRB study happening now. So this will be hopefully added to that research-based category. But we start out with the basics of hazing, recognizing the realities, some of the statistics, talking about the spectrum. The 10 signs of healthy and unhealthy groups are included in the course material, as well as bystander intervention strategies and information, scenarios built in throughout so that learners are practicing with knowledge checks and so on, and then a customizable space at the end for campus policies, state laws, and reporting and resource information at the end, along with a quiz and an evaluation.
And then the Gordy Center partnered with Alive Tech in their Prevent Zone suite of online modules. So if you are using Alive Tech's Hazing Prevention 101, you can add on Haze, the risks of alcohol and hazing as an add-on module there. And then we also offer a free hazing prevention self-assessment that we created in partnership with Hazing Prevention Network and the Piazza Center at Penn State. That self-assessment is based on over 30 years of guiding principles that the Gordy Center has used in our Apple Athletics Training Institute, and we adapted it for hazing prevention. So that is a free resource available through our website. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about a few other resources that the Gordy Center and Stop Hazing and a few other folks offer that are grounded in research. So the Gordy Center's website is meant for y'all to use. If you go to gordy.org, you can find our prevention toolkit, which has social media campaigns, including alt text, which I know can be really important when you're trying to throw something out on social media. So you can go in, you can download any of it, you can adapt it for your campus. It's not branded with the University of Virginia, it just has gordy.org on it, or you can take our language and use it with credit to us would be great. We also offer our Haze documentary film, which is a documentary that tells the story of Gordy Bailey, for whom the Gordy Center is named, and his hazing and alcohol overdose related death at the University of Colorado. It is a 38-minute film. And it has a facilitation guide, and schools have been using that film since 2008, and we did an update to the film in 2018. So that's used in high schools and colleges around the country. We also offer a downloadable faculty guide in our Gordy Center store, and that's really to help recognize and assist students in distress. So there is a faculty staff component of the Stop Campus Hazing Act, and y'all might find that guide helpful for complying with that aspect of the law. And then we run National Gordy Day, which is part of National Hazing Prevention and Awareness Week. This year it is September 25th. It's the Thursday of that week. And we have a lot of free resources on our website for National Gordy Day.
Cool. Stop Hazing also has a number of, well, actually, all of the resources that we've shared from Stop Hazing are available on the website and no cost, except for our online module. There's a small licensing fee for that. Intentionally tried to keep that rate very low. But these resources are also no cost. We've got social media toolkits. These will be social media toolkit will be updated ahead of National Hazing Awareness Week later in September. We have some viewing guides and viewing addendums to go along with Byron Hurt's film Hazing. We'll be releasing, so currently there's a hazing viewing guide and a bystander intervention guide that's also standalone, but also works with the hazing film. We include some timestamps to specific pieces of the film to encourage discussion with different prompts. And we'll be releasing 2 additional addenda to the film. One is focused on mental health and hazing. And so we share some clips and discussion questions and prompts that talk about that intersection of hazing and mental health and the well-being wheel. And then in the power dynamics, new addendum that also digs into the intersection between power dynamics and hazing, how that shows up. And we share some timestamps and discussion questions related to that from the film as well. The bystander intervention guide, as a standalone, has a couple of activities, including a spectrum of hazing activity and some other discussion, and building a hazing prevention plan activity. And so getting students and participants in that type of discussion or workshop more engaged and having their voice heard in building a plan for campus hazing prevention, while talking about the 5 steps of bystander intervention at the same time. So those are a few more resources from us, and I guess a couple more here. We've got more digital tools and downloads. Both Stop Hazing and Gordy Center have all kinds of free downloadable content for you all. Awareness campaign information coming up with National Gordy Day and National Hazing Awareness Week. Film-based resources, communications from leadership, such as sample template language that a VP or Dean of Students could tailor and then send out to the student body, to parents and families, and so on. The heavy lifting's already been done, just needs to be tailored and sent out. If you have some buy-in from leadership to do that sort of thing, as an example, as well as other facilitated programs.
And then I see we have a question about how effective are bystander education programs. Thank you, Elisa, for asking. And so overall, a lot of bystander intervention programs have been around for a long time. A lot of them have been in the sexual violence prevention area, and they have been shown to be very effective, but it can be subject specific. So I would do some, testing on your own campus to see what resonates with your students. But overall, bystander intervention programs can be very effective.
Definitely. And that Intervene film from Cornell, that one has a peer-reviewed journal article that you could dig into a little bit more. And their website on it has some information about the effectiveness of it as an example. There is a lot of other material out there, but that one's specific to hazing prevention.
Great. So back to the Stop Campus Hazing Act requirements. There is a requirement that you have a notification on your public website about hazing and the work that you're doing to prevent hazing on your campus. So your statements, the information on your website must include your annual hazing statistics, including a link to the ASR, information about your policies related to hazing, including any applicable law, and then information required for the Campus Hazing Transparency Report, which I will show y'all in a little bit, and then a required retention period of 5 years for that information available easily on the website. So we just have a little bit of guidance that we've put together on the public website, and that is that it should be easy to find. Like a nice thought exercise for you is to think about how many clicks does it take to get to this information? How are parents or families or students finding this information on your website? Is it through, if you do a little search on your site, is it pulling up right away? And then it needs to live somewhere separate from the FSL page, because not every student is involved in fraternity and sorority life. And we know that hazing can happen in any type of student organization. So it can't just be on the FSL website. You want to include some education and context about the distinctions between what the Clery report says and what your transparency report says. So the Clery report shows reports of hazing, not necessarily findings of hazing. So the transparency report must show all findings of hazing on your campus, whereas the Clery report might show elevated numbers because that's reports and findings. So there is a little bit of a distinction, and parents, families, students might have questions about that. The required retention period is 5 years, but we recommend that you keep it live for 7 years because that's in line with every other Clery statistic. So there's a slight difference in that time frame, but 7 years would be the recommended retention policy. And then really thinking about how are you effectively communicating this information out to the folks who need it. So there are a lot of examples that we can use. And since I'm at the University of Virginia, I am going to use ours. So I am going to show you guys how you get, this is the University of Virginia's hazing prevention website. We call it Who's Against Hazing because we are the Wahoos. And you can get to it by searching hazing. You can get to it from the student affairs. I think we counted and it takes 3 to 4 clicks depending on how you get into our hazing prevention website. The top bar is really how to report an incident. And then we have some information down here. If you're not sure what hazing is, we have our university policy easily available. We have some, like a quick graphic on how to help you understand what hazing is, what kinds of groups. We use Stop Hazing's lovely Spectrum resource as well. So lots of information about hazing in case people are coming to you kind of with lots of questions about the basics. And then again, how to report. So this gives some options for how to report within the University of Virginia system. It has the prohibition, the link to our policy right here. And then you can use this is an internal reporting system. You have to be logged in to report, but that's pretty easy to get to. And then hazing prevention, ways to get involved in hazing prevention at UVA. We have a Who's Against Hazing Council that students and staff can get involved in. Lots of different resources here on the side, some resources for parents. We tried to make it pretty easy entry, like you could easily find what you wanted, what you needed when you come to Who's Against Hazing's website. And then the last piece is that campus hazing transparency report. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when I go back into our slides, but I wanted to give you guys a little demo of how UVA does our campus hazing transparency report. So there are a couple of required elements here. One is you have to have it updated before the start of each semester. And it's really nice to put the date straight up front so folks know how relevant is this information, how updated is it. We also have a list of our policy and how to reach the Commonwealth's law, the university's policy, what kind of programs we're doing, and then the annual statistic ASR declaration is here. And then we have a little box here for suspended student organizations to help students recognize that there are student orgs that you shouldn't necessarily, or you should be concerned about joining if they are still recruiting. So right now it says 2024-25 academic year, there were no findings of hazing, and UVA has a slightly different judicial process. We are an entirely student-run judicial process. So some of the cases from last year may not have been heard by our student judiciary before the summer break. So it's possible that we will update this to add something from 2024-25. But as of May 16th, we did not have any findings of hazing, which is different from reports of hazing. And then you can see in previous years, the organizations are listed, and you can go and click for more information. So I love our little drop downs. So we have the dates of the hazing incidents. We tried to be extremely transparent. The date that the incidents were reported, the dates of the investigation. This one took a long time because local police were involved, and so we didn't have access to their findings for a decent amount of time, and we waited until we had the full police report before we made a finding. And then we fully describe what we found in that report. So we try to be as transparent as possible so that when students are coming and trying to learn more about an organization that they want to join, or families have concerns about an organization, they can learn exactly what happened in that incident. And so we try to be very thorough in each of these reports. So I like to think we're doing a great job complying with the law requirements and just giving our community the information that they need to make informed decisions about organizations that they want to join. That is the goal of this transparency part of the Stop Campus Hazing Act. And that is our goal at the University of Virginia, to help students understand what student organizations have been accused of and have been found responsible for, and why they should maybe consider joining a different type of organization. So lots of information here, lots of availability, and we really tried our best to be as transparent as possible. So I'm going to bump us back into our webinar, but you're welcome to go visit Who's Against Hazing at any time to see a little bit more about how we organize the information.
Thanks, Jill. So a resource for you all as you're considering or working on developing your hazing prevention websites, and then also your transparency reports. And then also as you're re-reviewing and thinking about your hazing policies, is hazinginfo.org. This is a partner organization of Stop Hazings. We worked with Jolene Houts is the co-founder of hazinginfo.org. She lost her son, Sam Martinez, at Washington State University a few years ago. And she, as a little bit of background, she was a journalist by trade. And so she knew how to do her homework. And this is the same story that we've heard over and over and over again from parents and families and students who have been impacted by hazing, that they found no information and no reason to question about joining a certain organization. And so now, as the federal law has been passed, a number of states already had these transparency report requirements, but now all states, all institutions, and all states will need to be developing and posting these transparency reports. They will all be populated at hazinginfo.org in the database there. There's a campus lookup feature. If you go to it right now and you don't find your institution, that's because right now there are only 9 states on there, and that's the 9 states that had previously had state laws requiring these transparency reports. In August, we will be launching all institutions in all 50 states. And at that time, you'll be able to search by campus, easily find the campus policy, the transparency report, and then any other information such as a reporting form or anonymous line on campus or a point of contact on campus. We populate all of that information on the campus page. There's some other resources on hazinginfo.org as well. And we recently launched the Hazing Death Database. As part of Hazing Info, we worked with Hank Newer and translated all of his years of work with his database into a new setup and more current database on Hazing Info. So we share that, and that can be used as a resource for inspiration as you're working on revamping your websites, and also as you're building your transparency reports. You can go look up some institutions and get some inspiration. Some institutions like UVA have drop-down menus. Some have PDFs. Some just have a wall of text on a website. It really depends, but I would encourage you to kind of poke around a little bit, see what others are doing. And also, if you happen to be one of the institutions there, or later on when all the institutions are populated and something isn't quite right, or you've updated something and it hasn't updated on Hazing Info, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll get that updated. But it's meant to be a one-stop shop to be able to, for a parent, a student, a policymaker, a journalist, anybody, a campus professional, to come and look and have easy access to this information so folks can make informed decisions in the spirit of transparency. So with that, we'll get back to, we have a couple more resources, and then we'll dig more into the campus, the transparency report requirements. So hazing info, you could look at existing reports, you could look at existing websites. We have a flow chart available, and that's kind of geared more for like parents or a consumer lens, to really understand what is the transparency report saying. And we'll talk more in a moment about how we encourage you to include as much detail as possible so somebody could really understand what happened, because we use acronyms, we use some vague language, and so trying to be as clear and concise but detailed as possible so anybody could read that report and know what happened, and then have transparency to make some informed decisions would be important. Stop Hazing also has a hazing transparency and prevention website rubric. We have a policy rubric, and then we have some other support packages that can help you as you're navigating. But let's talk more about the transparency reports. So if we think back to the very beginning of the webinar, this is that third bucket of new requirements. So we had the ASR hazing incident, counting hazing incidents as Clery statistics in your ASRs. We have the education component and documenting what you're doing for all of those programs in those policy statements that are also in your ASRs. And now we have the transparency report. So the Campus Hazing Transparency Report summarizes findings concerning any established or recognized student organization found to be in violation of an institution's standards of conduct relating to hazing as defined by the institution and their hazing policies. So in this case, your institution policy and your definition, your institution's policy definition of hazing is what you're going to use in order to determine what is going in this transparency report. So you'll include the name of a student organization, a description of the violation, and in that description, you'll need to include whether the violation involved the abuse or illegal use of alcohol or drugs, the findings of the institution of the incident, and any sanctions placed on the student organization. You'll need to have the incident, the date the incident was alleged to have occurred, the date the investigation was initiated, the date the investigation ended with a finding of violation, and then the date the institution provided notice to the organization of outcome. So this is I'm gonna go back one more slide, hold on. Sorry, Jill. There are some nuances to this, and it will be up to every institution. This is, you could think about this as the floor. This is what's required. This is what you have to share by law. And we encourage you to think about how are you going to enhance this in the spirit of transparency and consumer protection and information, and generally campus safety. So how can you ensure that that description is really detailed? How can you provide more transparency? Could you include all incidents that were investigated and then just indicate what the sanctions were, the findings were? So the floor is that you have to include incidents that were found in violation. But there are many institutions that are including all incidents that were investigated as a way to further increase transparency, knowing that hazing conduct investigations are really nuanced, they're really long processes, and it's often really hard to find an outcome of hazing violations. But there's a lot of information that could be shared in the spirit of transparency, and being able to have folks make some more informed decisions. So I'll pass it over to Jill.
Yeah, so again, this is new. This is a new requirement, so you may not have this up on your website. And we are, Robin, I see your question. We are going to go over implementation deadlines toward the end of this presentation. And I mentioned that we update our hazing transparency report before the start of each semester. That's a Virginia law, the timing of when UVA updates our transparency report is dictated by Adams law in Virginia. However, the Stop Campus Hazing Act requires at least 2 times per year an update. So it makes sense to do that before your semester, but again, it's at least 2 times per year. We've heard from some institutions who think that this might violate FERPA. It does not, because we're not listing individual students and their education records and their judiciary findings, whatever that might be. It doesn't include any personally identifiable information. It really is just organization specific. So that's what we need to be including in our campus hazing transparency. Stop Hazing offers an awesome blog that talks through a lot about transparency report and how to build that on your website. And again, I encourage you to head out to other institutions, check out how they're implementing it. Again, this is kind of a screenshot from UVA's last year and how we implement it on our campus. So those are lots of options of how to build your transparency report. All right, so we covered a lot of information and how to implement some of these Stop Campus Hazing Act elements. How are y'all feeling on you're ready to implement? If you feel good about it, you can say yes. You can select all 3 if you're feeling really great about it. If you're not feeling so great, then you don't need to respond, but we were just curious. Again, we had an hour to go through, really dense, lots of information. There's tons and tons and tons of information about the Stop Campus Hazing Act available, and lots of different resources to help you feel prepared. So if this webinar showed you some things where you're not feeling as comfortable, please go find other resources, other folks who are doing some education on the Stop Campus Hazing Act so that you can get more comfortable with that aspect. All right, so we said we were covering implementation timelines, so here we go. Starting January 1st, as Meredith mentioned, your institution should have been beginning to collect statistics on hazing incidents. As of June 23rd, you should have updated your campus hazing policy, including your prevention policies, and have those available for folks to access. And then starting July 1st, you must start collecting information with respect to hazing incidents and violations. So that's to build your transparency reports. Your transparency report needs to become publicly available by December 23rd, 2025. And it must be updated at least 2 times each year. And then starting October 2026, that will be the first annual security report, so CLEARI report, with hazing data included, because it takes that long to collect all that data. So you started collecting data in January, but it won't appear in the CLEARI report until October 2026. So hopefully that is helpful. You guys will have these slides. It'll have all these deadlines and timelines in it for you. And now Meredith and I just want to run through really quickly a few resources. Again, I want to remind folks that we want to be comprehensive and we want to have appropriate dosage. So you want to be reaching students in a variety of different ways throughout each semester. How are we communicating with faculty and staff? How are we communicating with other community members? There are lots of different ways to reach folks with hazing prevention and education. And we really want to help you guys be as comprehensive as possible. So please visit Gordy.org. Our website has tons of language. We want you to use it, take it, put it on your website. We also have a lot of free tools in our toolkit, as I mentioned. And then again, we are happy to license our programs if that is helpful for you as you look to ramp up your education. And then Stop Hazing has some that Meredith will cover.
Cool. Yeah, we have the next cohort of the Hazing Prevention Consortium will be launching in September. So that is open if folks have want to dig into what that 3-year commitment looks like. I'm happy to chat offline about that. We have a membership program, which we also developed as a way to help bridge that gap between our no-cost resources on our website and the consortium. But a way to still offer access to more exclusive resources and monthly coaching calls with us or technical assistance calls to dig in, whether that's to a transparency report or anything related to the Stop Campus Hazing Act or building your coalition on campus and so on. And then more specifically, due to demand after Stop Campus Hazing Act was passed, we developed some hazing prevention policy packages. And so there's some more specific resources included in those packages, like the website rubric, the policy rubric, and then coaching opportunities and some other things included in there for folks who want some more support as you're working to implement Stop Campus Hazing Act. That's among many other things that we have available and going on at Stop Hazing. We have a QR code, so folks could join our email list and stay up to date on things and get some periodic updates or announcements about trainings. So that's available at this QR code, and we have another one in just a moment with the Gordy email list. But to answer questions that came in the chat or in the Q&A, from Robin, when does all of this have to be implemented? So we touched on those implementation deadlines. By the end of the year is when you need to have that transparency report live. But currently you should already be counting hazing statistics for your Clery reports. That won't be published until October of next year, but counting them already. And then everybody should also have their policy statements developed. And that's documenting what you're doing for education and programming, your institutional policy, procedures, and so on. Those should also already be live. So it could be thinking more about how you're structuring your websites, where all of this information is available, and so on. And Lauren's question, can the campus hazing transparency report be updated in alignment with the state law / update requirements after the December 23rd initial deadline? I would recommend that you get that transparency report up in time for that December deadline, but then have a plan moving forward that then allows you to be in compliance with both. So that you're, after that, working smarter, not harder, and having to do all kinds of updates all the time, but rather aligning with your state law. Like in South Carolina, for example, they have specific timeframes of when the updates to the transparency report has to happen. So you could, after that December deadline, work to streamline those so that they all work together.
We're happy to take more questions in the chat or in the Q&A if y'all have questions, but we just wanted to say thank you. And we provided our email addresses. If you have other questions or as you're digging into this, if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure how to handle this, Meredith and I are available and happy to talk with you about the Stop Campus Hazing Act, about education, about the ways that you can implement the different pieces. And we just appreciate y'all being here and learning a little bit from us today.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the slides are available. What if I have no access to past hazing statistics on our campus?
I think a lot of folks are in that boat. And so I recommend if you have like a spring survey or a fall survey that already goes out to your students, work with the staff who builds that survey and add a few hazing questions in so that you can start to get a baseline of what's happening on your campus. And that can help inform maybe a social norms campaign later or some of the education that you're putting out. And then obviously you'll have some statistics just based on collecting the data about the incidents that are happening on your campus as well moving forward. So a lot of campuses are in a place where they don't have historical data, and that's okay. You just want to start building some of that now.
Yeah, so that's both assessment data, what Jill's speaking to, and then any previous reports. If you don't have previous reports, that is something that you can document. And explaining that is how you could then make sure that you're checking that box and being in compliance on the ASR piece. The compliance team involved in Hazing Prevention Week efforts. I think that probably will vary by institution and what's going on for Hazing Prevention Week. We're still okay, cool. Things started closing out, but I would recommend that the compliance team is part of an overall coalition, and that we're thinking about hazing prevention beyond just 1 week and that awareness campaign. But what else is happening? Who else can we involve, and at what times of the year? Thinking through that comprehensiveness and that dosage piece that Jill had mentioned earlier.
And I also think getting your compliance folks involved in awareness and education efforts can help them be humanized to your student body. If they're being seen outside of a judicial process, and they're helping students to understand how the process works, that can really improve that transparency aspect. We have students who don't want to report hazing on one end of the spectrum because they are worried that the university will do nothing about it, and other students who don't want to report because they're worried the university will shut everything down and they'll lose all their friends. So it really helps to bring your compliance folks into that conversation to help students feel more comfortable with that process. So if you can involve them in any of your efforts, to include awareness weeks or prevention weeks, that's always a great idea.
Well, thank you so much, Jill and Meredith, for again sharing of your expertise and so many tangible resources. As you can see in the chat, I'm sure if we were in person, people would be standing and applauding. So thank you both for sharing of your time and expertise. And thank you for sharing of your contacts for if folks have any other questions. Of course, the session slides will be shared and have been shared, so you have access to their emails. I do just have just a couple of other slides that I will share quickly. And so, of course, we encourage you to connect with us here. The QR code takes you to our website. And so if you're not connected with our U-Report, we encourage you to register for our email list, the U-Report. Additionally, we have just a few upcoming events that I would like to share with everybody. Our next webinar is taking place next week on August 6th and is focusing on trends in college student substance use, the who, what, and how did the pandemic affect us. Our next water cooler chat will be taking place on August 12th and is focused on becoming professionally developed. And we will be launching our registration for our Fall Learning Collaborative in early August, which will be focusing on more than sobriety, building collegiate recovery supports for the whole student. And then, of course, we have our 2025 national meeting taking place October 21st through the 23rd here in Columbus, Ohio, which we will also be having a virtual component running simultaneously. So we hope you are able to join us. Thank you again, Jill and Meredith, for your presentation today. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We hope to see you next week for our next webinar, and I hope you take care. Take care all.